What's going on, guys? It's Troydan here, and today we've got NBA players who killed someone. This list is quite shocking, and I had no idea how many psycho killers there were in the NBA, but we're going to find out right now, and I don't know who that is, but I guess he killed someone. Go.
The name's been around the G League for years, bouncing between teams like a pinball stuck on demo mode. He had the size, 6 feet 10 inches tall, sometimes listed at 6 feet 11, depending on which website wanted to give him that extra inch. He came out of Los Angeles, went through Beverly Hills High, and ended up at Arizona for 2 seasons. Pretty standard path, right? Play in college, declare for the draft, hope something sticks, but it didn't. He went undrafted in 2017, started carving out a journeyman's path through the G League.
Okay.
He played for the Memphis Hustle, then got traded to the Canton Charge and kept trying to find a place. And then in 2022, the Stockton Kings brought him in. He was putting up solid numbers there too. 14 points, 7 rebounds, a block and a half per game, shooting over 60% from the floor. He even made it to the NBA. Technically, Portland gave him a 10-day contract in April 2023. He played in 1 game, scored 7 points in a blowout loss, and that was the extent of his NBA career.
Damn.
Sacramento brought him in on another 10-day deal that October, but waived him after 10 days. Back to Stockton, he went. But then came December. It unraveled fast. A few days before his arrest, he had just played in a G League game against Ignite. He put up 16 points and 6 boards. What people didn't know at the time was that he was allegedly involved in something way darker. Marina Rogers, a medical assistant from Washington State, went missing on December 7th. 2 days earlier, Comanche was still playing ball and staying at the M Resort Casino with the team. That morning, around 6, he came back. 2 hours later, he left with the team. And in that window, something horrifying allegedly happened. Authorities say he and his ex-girlfriend, 19-year-old Sakari Harnden, lured Rogers out under the pretense of offering her money for escort services. Comanche allegedly pretended to be a client, asking for what they called kinky sex. Rogers agreed to be zip-tied. That's when things took a violent turn. In the back of a Mercedes-Benz, Comanche allegedly strangled her with an HDMI cord for 10 seconds.
What?
Harnden kept choking her until she died. Then they drove to a ditch in Henderson, Nevada, dumped the body, and covered it with rocks.
Hold on.
Rogers
What? I've never heard of this. What? He did what? First off, the music in the background really doesn't set the tone for that. He choked her with an HDMI cord?
never made it back to her friends. Her phone went dark. Her dogs, her car, everything was left behind. And Harnden, she was already telling Rogers' friends what to say to the police. All of this, investigators say, came from a twisted motive. Apparently, Rogers had accused Harnden of stealing a Rolex and threatened to shoot her. There was also tension over rumors that Harnden had implicated Comanche in a separate murder case. Texts between the two were found, where Comanche used a coffin emoji and talked about hiring someone named Trey to do the killing. When that failed, they took matters into their own hands. Harnden got arrested on December 13th. 2 days later, the FBI took Comanche in at the Stockton Kings
practice. That's a one-of-one? Bitch, okay, listen. When you're doing murders, don't talk about it in your goddamn text messages with freaking emojis, dude. The government can find. You shouldn't kill people anyway. But even if an HDMI cable, an HDMI.
He confessed and even gave the police the location of the body.
Not a
same
USB-C.
day, he was released from the team. It was over. Not just his season, not just his career. His whole life changed
His life
in a flash.
is over.
Both
Idiot.
of them were indicted in March 2024. The charges: murder, conspiracy to commit murder, kidnapping, and conspiracy to commit kidnapping. The legal system's moving, and both are due back in court. Comanche waived extradition, so he's set to face trial in Nevada. Harnden's already had a hearing, and more are on the calendar. The district attorney plans to prosecute them together,
Dude,
and there's plenty of evidence.
Give this guy a death sentence with an HDMI cable.
This wasn't a moment of rage. It was planned. It was deliberate, and it left a young woman dead in a ditch. 1 minute, Comanche was getting real minutes in a G League game. The next, he's behind bars without bail, and none of it had anything to do with basketball. Keith Appling. At one point, his name meant something in Michigan. He was a star at Pershing High in Detroit, dropping 49 points in the state championship game his junior year, breaking a decades-old record. By senior year, he was named Mr. Basketball of Michigan and ranked inside the top 35 nationally. He wasn't just good, he was expected to be the next big thing. Then he went to Michigan State, played under Tom Izzo from 2010 to 2014, started a ton of games, and scored over 1,500 points in his college career. But that wrist injury during his senior season knocked him off track. He went undrafted in the 2014 NBA draft and never quite found stable ground.
Number 1 pick, Andrew Wiggins.
Appling signed with the Orlando Magic in 2015, got a second deal later that season, and played in just 5 NBA games. He averaged barely over a point per game. Most of his time came in the G League. He played for the Los Angeles Defenders, then got traded to Erie Bayhawks. In 38 total G League games, he averaged 10.5 points, 3 rebounds, and nearly 4 assists. He was even an All-Star in 2016, but it didn't last. After bouncing between leagues in Mexico, Argentina, Italy, and the Dominican Republic, his career faded out by 2019. Then came the legal problems. In 2016, he got arrested for bringing a loaded gun into a strip club. The next year, he was convicted for carrying a concealed weapon without a permit and for resisting the cops. He got a year in jail and 4 years probation. In 2020, he was charged again, this time for heroin, 19 grams of it, got probation again, and all of this was before the biggest incident of them all. On May 22nd, 2021, Appling visited a relative, 66-year-old Clyde Edmonds in Detroit. Edmonds was his mother's cousin's husband. An argument allegedly broke out over a gun. Appling reportedly shot Edmonds multiple times and left him bleeding out on the front lawn. When police arrived, they found him critically wounded. He later died at the hospital. Appling fled the scene in a car driven by his girlfriend, Natalie Bannister. Witnesses said it wasn't just a heat-of-the-moment thing. According to the victim's wife, Cassandra, Appling went toward the back of the house before shots were fired. Edmonds' stepson, Timothy Williams, testified that he heard gunshots, ran inside, saw Edmonds down, and wrestled the gun away from Appling. Appling reportedly told him he was sorry and that he loved, but that didn't undo what just happened. Police arrested Appling 2 days later. He was hit with charges for first-degree murder, being a felon in possession of a firearm, and 2 counts related to using that firearm. No bail. He
had 17 grams of heroin? Holy how much is that? I've never done it.
In Wayne County Jail,
I've only known a lot of people that have done it.
In February 2023, instead of going to trial, Appling pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and a single felony firearm charge. That plea deal dropped the rest of the charges, including the first-degree murder one. The agreement locked him in for a sentence between 18 and 40 years for the murder, plus 2 extra years for the gun. But during sentencing in March, he tried to take it back, saying he didn't understand the plea. The judge didn't buy it. He'd had chances to ask questions and speak up before. The court rejected the reversal. He got the sentence, 18 to 40 years for murder and 2 more years right after for the gun. Wayne County prosecutor Kim Worthy called it tragic. Not just the crime, which took someone's life, but the whole fall. From a once promising star to a man convicted of murder. Tom Izzo even said in 2021 that he'd tried to keep Appling on a better path, but it didn't work out. And that's not all. Appling still has more charges hanging over him from another shooting in Jackson, Michigan earlier that same May. Those were still unresolved as of March 2023. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Charles Smith, he was once the pride of Georgetown basketball. A point guard who played like his whole future was on fast forward. He tore it up in the Big East, won Player of the Year in his senior season, and even earned a spot on the U.S. Olympic team in Seoul in 1988. That squad took home bronze, the last one without NBA players. He averaged nearly 19 points per game that senior year, took Georgetown to the Elite 8, and finished as one of their most respected leaders under Coach John Thompson. But he went undrafted in 1989, mostly because of his size and inconsistent shooting. Still, the Boston Celtics gave him a shot. Smith signed as an undrafted free agent and played in 60 games across 2 seasons.
He looks familiar
for some reason. He bounced in and out of the lineup, battling injuries, including a shoulder dislocation. His stats were modest, just under 3 points and 2 assists per game. In March 1991, he signed his second 10-day contract with the Celtics. It was supposed to be another shot. Then came the night everything fell apart. On March 22nd, Smith was behind the wheel of a Dodge Caravan with his former Georgetown roommate, Benjamin Guillory, riding along. They were driving down Commonwealth Avenue in Boston around 1:45 in the morning when they struck 2 Boston University students crossing the street, Trin and Michelle Dartley. Witnesses said the van ran a red light, hit the women, spun around, slowed briefly, and then sped off. A nearby taxi driver followed the van and flagged down police.
Let's go,
Smith
taxi.
Stopped about a mile away. The van had visible front-end damage. He was cooperative and didn't resist. His blood alcohol level was .06. under the legal limit at
below,
the time, but prosecutors argued he was impaired based on other evidence. Guillory testified that Smith had at least 2 beers before the crash. Smith was charged with 2 counts each of vehicular homicide, manslaughter, leaving the scene, reckless operation, and failure to yield. He was released on a $100,000 personal recognizance bond and
He was released?
did not travel with the Celtics that day. His contract quietly expired days later, and Boston never brought him back. The trial wrapped up almost a year later, in March 1992. Prosecutors called Smith's flight from the scene obscene and disgusting. The defense called it a tragic accident, arguing that witnesses exaggerated and that Smith was a responsible person.
He drove off!
Character witnesses included John Thompson and Celtics executive Dave Gavitt. Smith didn't testify, but addressed the victims' families at sentencing, apologizing in a quiet voice. He was convicted of 2 counts of vehicular homicide and 2 counts of leaving the scene. He was acquitted on the more serious manslaughter charges. The judge sentenced him to 4.5 years. He served 28 months before being released in July 1994. Somehow, after prison, Smith got back on the court. He played in the CBA, even made an all-star team with the Hartford Hellcats. In 1996, he led the league in assists. He also played overseas, in Serbia, Greece, Spain, Puerto Rico, Argentina, Belgium, and Italy. His NBA comeback was short-lived, just 13 games with the Timberwolves in the 1994-95 season. But his story didn't end there. In October 2010, Smith was shot twice in the chest at his home in Maryland. He survived after surgery, but police later found a large amount of cocaine and evidence of gambling operations at the house. No charges were filed in that incident, and no suspect was named. He once said there would always be a scar. And that's probably true. He refused to let his mother and sister visit him in prison, saying he didn't want them to see him like that. His fall wasn't just about one decision. It was about what came after, too. Jayson Williams, standing 6'10" and weighing in at 245 pounds, he looked every bit the bruising power forward fans loved in New Jersey. He came out of Christ the King High School in Queens, landed at St. John's, and left with all Big East.
Wasn't Jayson Williams white? Or did something happen?
East honors his senior year. He played over 100 games in college, averaging 10 points and 7 rebounds. That rebounding work was his trademark. Even a knee injury couldn't stop him from going 21st overall in the 1990 NBA draft. Phoenix picked him, but flipped him to Philly, where he played 2 quiet seasons before the Nets gave him his real shot. With New Jersey, Williams found his stride. He started over 200 games, averaged a double-double in his best years, and led the league in offensive boards in 1998. That same year, he made the All-Star game. Even though he couldn't play due to a broken thumb, the Nets gave him a massive contract extension. 6 years, $86 million.
Damn, that's a lot.
It should have been the prime of his career, but in 1999, he broke his leg during a game. His NBA run was over just like that. Off the court, he was known for being lively, wild at times. He hosted parties, showed up on TV as a commentator, even worked the Salt Lake City Olympics in 2002. But on February 14th of that year, everything took a fatal turn. Williams invited a group of friends over after a dinner out. Among them was a limo driver, Kostas Christofi, a 55-year-old family man and Vietnam veteran, just doing his job, driving them around. At some point in the early hours, Williams took the group upstairs to show off his shotgun collection. He picked up a 12-gauge Browning, pointed it in Christofi's direction, and pulled the trigger. Christofi died instantly, hit in the chest at close range. Williams said it was an accident, that he didn't know the gun was loaded, but what happened after that told a different story. According to witnesses, he wiped off his fingerprints, put the gun in Christofi's hands to stage a suicide, stripped off his bloody clothes, and asked his guests to lie to the police. Forensics didn't lie. The blood spatter, the residue, it all contradicted the suicide story. Officers arrived minutes later. Williams told them Christofi shot himself. That fell apart fast. In April, he was indicted on manslaughter and a laundry list of related charges: assault, tampering, hindering, you name it. He pleaded not guilty, got out on bail, and went to trial in 2004. The jury didn't buy the suicide story, but they also didn't convict him on the top charges. He was found guilty of 4 counts, all related to the cover-up, and acquitted of aggravated manslaughter. The jury was split on reckless manslaughter, so the judge declared a mistrial for that count. Years passed with retrial delays, appeals, new evidence, legal arguments, all dragged things out. Finally, in February 2010, Williams pleaded guilty to 1 count of aggravated assault. He admitted to recklessly causing Christophe's death. In exchange, the other charges were dropped. He got 5 years, had to serve at least 85% under New Jersey's No Early Release Act. He served 27 months and walked out in April 2012.
What? Why'd he kill him?
Christophe's family filed a civil suit and settled for $2.75 million. And right before his plea, Williams got into more trouble, crashing his SUV in Manhattan with a blood alcohol level over twice the legal limit.
Oh, great.
That earned him another year in jail, which he served in part at Rikers Island. After prison, Williams tried to put the pieces back together. He wrote a memoir, started a rehab center in South Carolina, and even went on reality TV to confront his addiction. He said he thought about Christophe every day, and maybe he meant it. But nothing changed. The fact that a man died in his home, and the fallout lasted for years. Leandro MaQuetti. He was once a McDonald's All-American and a rising star out of Verbum Day High School in Los Angeles. Born in Cuba in 1959, he came to the United States at age 11 with his family, settling in Linwood, California. And by 9th grade, he was spotted playing in a park league by a high school coach. That led to a basketball path that took him to USC and later to Hampton University. His numbers weren't huge in college, under 5 points and 3 boards a game at USC. But his high school resume still carried weight. In 1981, he declared early for the NBA draft under hardship status and got picked in the 9th round by the San Antonio Spurs. But that's where the basketball story ends. He never signed, never played a game in the league, and never made an appearance overseas or in any other pro system. Whatever potential he had faded quietly until it all exploded decades later in a violent way no one saw coming. On March 25, 2010, MaQuetti drove to a property in Plant City, Florida, that he used to share with his ex-girlfriend, Siglinda Sperber. There, he shot and killed 41-year-old Michael Hurlbut, a handyman helping Sperber move some things. According to her testimony, MaQuetti didn't say a word. He jumped out of his car, ran across the yard, and opened fire. The first bullet hit Hurlbut in the chest. As he fell face down, MaQuetti fired 3 more times. 2 bullets pierced Hurlbut's aorta, killing him within seconds. After the shooting, MaQuetti pointed the gun at Sperber and forced her inside the house. She had just returned from Gainesville with Hurlbut, where they'd taken a sick Great Dane to a vet. When deputies arrived, MaQuetti was still there. He called the sheriff's office himself, admitted to the shooting, and surrendered without resistance. Prosecutors said jealousy was the motive. Sperber and MaQuetti had broken up back in 2008 after more than 10 years together. They had bought the property in 2007 to breed Great Danes and grow lychee trees. After the breakup, MaQuetti moved into a different room, then an apartment, but he didn't let go. Phone records showed minute-by-minute calls to Sperber. She found a baby monitor under her bed and a hidden camera in the garage. MaQuetti admitted to planting both. There was even a physical incident where he grabbed her by the hair and slammed her against a wall. Despite all that, MaQuetti claimed the shooting was a blur, an accident. He testified at trial, saying it was something that shouldn't have happened, but the jury didn't buy it. His attorney had promised they'd hear an explanation, but all they got was a vague story with no specifics.
Death penalty
the forensic evidence painted a much clearer picture. So did Sperber's account. On April 21st, 2011, after just 90 minutes of deliberation, the jury found him guilty. First-degree murder, aggravated battery with a firearm, false imprisonment. A month later, he was sentenced to life without parole, plus 2 concurrent 5-year sentences. The judge described the crime as a chain reaction of jealousy, rage, and a loaded gun. Hurlbut's father stood in court and called MaQuetti a coward. Around 30 family members attended the sentencing, hugging each other after the verdict came down. MaQuetti was sent to Okeechobee Correctional Institution in Florida, where he remains today.
Let's go.
He appealed the conviction, but in 2023, the court upheld it. No statement from him has surfaced since. At trial and sentencing, he showed no emotion. Hurlbut wasn't romantically involved with Sperber. He was a friend and a dog lover helping out. His death was senseless. The man who once showed flashes of basketball talent ended up in prison for a cold, deliberate act. From high school fame to a prison cell, all because he couldn't let go. Javaris Crittenton. He had all the makings of a star. Tall, quick, smart, and powerful. Coming out of Southwest Atlanta Christian Academy, he wasn't just a teammate of Dwight Howard. He was a standout in his own right. His junior and senior years were packed with big numbers, averaging close to 30 points and nearly 10 assists. And he brought home another state title before heading off to Georgia Tech. He kept that momentum rolling as a freshman, putting up over 14 points and nearly 6 assists a game, enough to get him on the ACC All-Freshman team. It didn't take long before the NBA came calling. In 2007, the Lakers took him 19th overall. He played behind a stacked roster and only got a handful of minutes, but he flashed enough upside to catch the eye of other teams. Memphis scooped him up in a trade that brought Powell to LA, and Crittenton saw more time on the court, even dropping 23 points in a win over the Knicks.
Trade ever.
Then Washington traded for him in another 3-team deal. It seemed like a chance to reset. Instead, things started to spiral. By December 2009, Crittenton was suspended from the league after a bizarre locker room standoff with teammate Gilbert Arenas, where both pulled guns during an argument. Crittenton got hit with a misdemeanor gun charge in community service, but the damage to his image was done. He was cut from the team and struggled to find his way back. A short stint in China and a few games in the D-League didn't lead anywhere, and by 2011, he was off the radar. That summer, things went from bad to tragic. On August 19th, Crittenton fired shots from a Chevrolet Tahoe during a drive-by on Macon Drive in southwest Atlanta. The target was Trontavious Stevens, a member of the Rock Crew, a Bloods-affiliated gang. Crittenton believed Stevens had robbed him of over $55,000 in jewelry months earlier, but the bullets didn't hit Stevens. Instead, they struck 22-year-old Julian Jones, an innocent mother of 4 who was standing outside talking with neighbors. A bullet hit her femoral artery. She died during surgery. Investigators later tied Crittenton to another shooting just 5 days before, when he fired from a Porsche at Demontina Stevens' Trontavious
Bro, I thought there was
brother.
stuff on my screen. It's the video. Has anyone else been scratching their screen? I'm sorry.
Shot missed too. Authorities connected both attacks and issued a warrant. On August 29th, the FBI arrested him at John Wayne Airport in California. He claimed he was flying to Atlanta to surrender. He was extradited and charged with murder, felony murder, attempted murder, aggravated assault, gun possession, and participation in criminal street gang activity. And while he was out on bond, things somehow got worse. In 2014, he was indicted again, this time for conspiracy to distribute cocaine and marijuana. 13 others were named in the indictment, tying him to a drug operation dealing in bulk quantities. In April 2015, Crittenton took a plea deal. He admitted guilt to voluntary manslaughter and aggravated assault, with the murder and gang charges dropped. He said, "I'm not a murderer. I made a mistake," but the judge wasn't impressed. She reminded him that Jones died, and the shooting wasn't an accident. He was sentenced to 23 years in prison, with 17 years of probation.
Damn, it should have been longer.
A twist. In April 2023, his sentence was reduced to 10 years served plus 30 years of probation. Conditions included an ankle monitor, curfews, and over 7,000 hours of community service.
Are you serious?
He walked out of prison that same month.
Oh.
The deal was actually arranged years earlier by a former district attorney, but the victim's family said they were never told. Jones' mother called it unfair, saying her daughter's life was cut short and her kids were left behind. Crittenton has kept a low profile since. No statements, no interviews, just silence. From NBA lottery pick to convicted killer, his fall wasn't sudden. It unraveled slowly and ended with the death of someone who wasn't even supposed to be part of the story, Michael Niles. He wasn't a household name in the NBA, but for a minute he was in the league. Coming out of Jefferson High in Los Angeles, he was a standout, helped win a city championship while navigating gang pressure and losing both parents before he graduated. He made it to Cal State Fullerton, where he became known as the team's muscle during their Cinderella run to the Elite Eight in 1978. He averaged 12 points and 6 boards over 3 seasons, but academics tripped him up his senior year and he was dismissed from the team. The Sixers picked him in the 4th round of the 1979 draft, but he never played a game for them. Instead, he had to grind his way in, finally catching a break with the Phoenix Suns in 1980. He played 44 games in the 1980-81 season, mostly off the bench. His numbers were modest, about 2.5 points and 1 rebound per game, but he had his moments. A 10-point night against Dallas, a handful of other solid showings. Then, just like that, he was cut. A short stint in the Continental Basketball Association followed. Then nothing. His NBA career ended almost as quickly as it started. After basketball, things went downhill fast. He battled cocaine addiction, worked briefly at Disneyland as a maintenance guy, and couldn't get back on his feet. By 1984, he was married to Sonia Rose Niles, a college grad and then a prison guard, but their relationship had frayed. On December 13th that year, she was murdered, shot at close range with a shotgun right outside their home in Corona, California. The blast was so close, the barrel left a burn mark. Prosecutors said it was execution style. The story that emerged was brutal. Prosecutors said Niles had hired Noel Jackson, a man from Los Angeles, to kill Sonia for $5,000.
$5K?
Money that would come from a $100,000 life insurance policy she had.
Wow.
Niles was broke, addicted, and jobless.
Man.
Sonia, on the other hand, was stable,
this
responsible,
guy.
and financially supportive.
Oh, he better be.
The plan, according to the
death penalty
prosecution,
this guy.
was to have Jackson do the shooting and then split the payout. But when the trial started in 1989, both men pointed fingers. Niles claimed Jackson acted alone. Jackson said Niles pulled the trigger himself. A lie detector test from Jackson backed his story, but it wasn't allowed in court. Both men were tried at the same time, but before separate juries. The prosecution presented a motive built on desperation. Niles was living off Sonia and saw her life insurance as a way out. He had no stable income, no career, and no future prospects. They painted him as the master.
Wasn't even that much
the defense
money.
tried to cast doubt, saying Jackson had a violent past and was the real killer. But the forensic evidence said otherwise. Whoever fired that shot did it from inches away, straight to the head. The jury deliberated for 13 hours. On January 24th, 1989, Niles was convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Jackson, found guilty the day before, got the death penalty.
Hey,
His sentence
let's go.
was upheld by the California Supreme Court years later.
Okay.
Niles avoided that fate, thanks in part to his lack of violent history and the argument that Jackson could have acted on his own. After the conviction, Niles faded into the prison system. He was sent to Corcoran, then transferred, with no public updates since the late 90s. His son Brandon, from a previous marriage, didn't even know the full story until he was 14. He grew up hearing his father once played in the NBA, but had vanished. When he finally learned the truth, it was a mix of pride and pain. A brief brush with the league, followed by a brutal crime that left a family shattered. Richard Adams. Back in the early 80s, he was one of the most feared big men in high school ball. They called him the Animal, not exactly a name that comes with chill vibes. At 6'9", he dominated for Benjamin Franklin High in East Harlem. On a squad loaded with future pros, he blocked everything, cleaned the glass, and brought chaos to Rucker Park every summer. By the time he hit UNLV, he was supposed to be the next great defensive anchor. But talent only takes you so far when life keeps dragging you back. Adams played 3 seasons at UNLV under Jerry Tarkanian, sitting out 1 year to deal with family stuff in New York. On the court, he did work, nearly 13 points and almost 7 rebounds a game across his career, and he was the PCAA Player of the Year 2 years in a row. His 37-point, 18-rebound game in triple overtime against Utah State, that was legendary. He was tough, emotional, and always on the edge. And that edge eventually consumed him. The Washington Bullets drafted him in the 4th round in 1985, and a day later, he was in handcuffs for stealing a car in the Bronx. Just like that, his NBA shot was gone. He bounced into the CBA, the USBL, and even tried a few games in South America. But by the late 80s, he was caught in a full-on freefall, arrested for multiple robberies, including an armed ATM mugging, spent 5 years in Sing Sing, tried to clean up in 1994, even showed up at a UNLV game to reconnect with old coaches, but he couldn't stay clean. Then came October 15, 1996. A 15-year-old girl named Norma Rodriguez was found dead in the hallway of Adams' old housing project in the Bronx, beaten and stomped near the elevator. A bloody sneaker, size 13.5, was found nearby. It matched Adams. Witnesses said he'd been harassing Norma, following her, making unwanted advances. She said no, and then she was dead. Adams went on the run for 8 days before turning himself in. He told reporters he was being hunted by drug dealers and denied killing Norma. At trial, prosecutors laid out the evidence. The stalking, the beating, the shoe, the motive. His defense attorney tried to lean into his addiction and mental state, claiming he never meant to kill her. But this wasn't a case of someone breaking under pressure. This was violent, personal, and direct. The jury didn't go for murder. They found him guilty of first-degree manslaughter. He dodged a life sentence, but he didn't walk away. In November 1998, he was sentenced to 25 years in prison, the max for the charge. The court gave him credit for time served since his arrest, but Norma's family wasn't satisfied. They called it injustice. A bright student, full of potential, killed in the building where she lived, and her killer got less than life. Adams had big plans if he got out. Coaching, maybe a return to Vegas. None of that happened. As of 2025, there's no public record of a release. No coaching, no second act, just silence. His coaches and teammates, even those who loved him, saw it coming. Tarkanian said Adams never made a right decision. And when you look at his path, from high school phenom to drug-addicted ex-con, it's hard to argue.
Dude, he stole a car. What was it, 4 days after he got drafted? What? You imagine LeBron James stole a car? I think we would think something was up. I don't know, man. I had no idea about, I think it was just the Crittenton guy that I'd heard about. I don't think I'd heard about the other ones. Or maybe I hadn't, I forgot. But that is crazy. What's even crazier is that some of these guys getting off. Like getting off early from, or not even getting really much of a trial, much of a conviction at all. I mean, one of them got, I think, a death penalty, but that wasn't even the NBA player. It was the guy who did it, who he paid for. I don't know, man. I don't know, dude. Every NBA player turned psycho killer. Guys, if you got a video you'd like me to watch or react to, post in my Discord. Thank you for watching. Kids, look out for psycho NBA players who steal cars on draft night.